engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this edition of Pure Reinvention. Hi, Misty.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, we're going to talk about the really important number 4 step in the reinvention process, the word called connect.
And that is a beautiful word indeed. It means so much to me. What does it mean to you?
Well, I really went on this journey of learning about the word connect when I started doing a lot of work with turnaround management, and I started to realize that a lot of the answers to what associations and businesses were looking for were already inside, but we just had to look at them in very different ways and different combinations, and I started to realize it really wasn't about new stuff. It was about learning how to connect things in new and different ways.
Mm-hmm. And I think you told me one time, you have a lot of really intelligent guesses, and until you start connecting them to your audience to make them more meaningful.
That's a really interesting thought because I actually sit in on a lot of board meetings, and a lot of board meetings are really these brainstorming sessions, as we've heard some of our speakers talk about, let's do this and let's do that, but very seldom is there the thought about how does it connect to the membership and how does it connect in a meaningful enough way to have some sort of an economic response. And I think as we talk about the word connect, as we talk about the role of boards, we have to talk about connection in a very, very, very different way. A great example of that is how the Detroit River is reconnecting the city of Detroit back together again after years and years and years of neglect. Do you remember that story, Misty?
I do. Mike was such a wonderful interview, and I loved learning about the way he talked about the history of Detroit and how the Detroit River does connect the waterways and exports and the auto industry and many other industries to Michigan and beyond.
And when we really think about how the word connect begins to drive a lot of opportunity going forward, after our first 3 steps in the reinvention process, we begin to realize that the connect word is the infinite number of possibilities that we have available to us, that when we really think we're really in a survival mode and what are we ever going to do, what we really haven't done is we really haven't used the power of networking, the power of diversified thought to really connect in new and different ways. And I believe that's a symptom of almost a generational thought, because I believe, Misty, you're going to tell me that the generation of new leaders, members of associations coming forward do enjoy diversified thought.
I think that they do, and I think that it's part of the highly connected world we live in, where we have access to all of these ideas and thoughts through the internet, through social platforms, and we can be exposed to it. Whether or not we agree with it, that exposure is so key that it's connecting us to the possibility of ideas and creating the space to have those new ideas.
One of the interesting observations I've made with a lot of the association leaders in the kind of the last phase of their careers is they're a little negative about these new members coming in who are very connected to their media devices. And yet, when you really recognize what those new leaders, members are doing with their media devices, is they're connecting. Mm-hmm. And they're connecting and learning in just different ways than what perhaps was available to the leaders before them. But nevertheless, that networking and that connectivity is probably one of the most attributes that group has, right, Misty?
I think so. I think that having your finger on a lot of different pulses helps you, like I said, stay open and create the space for the new ideas. And Connect is one of our, I think, in our 5-step model here, it's the most multi-layered platform, because you're not only connecting to those ideas and creating the space to let those connections happen, you're connecting with people, you're connecting with products and services, and it just goes in so many layers as part of Pure Reinvention, how fundamental Connect really is.
Well, when you think about the first 3 steps in the reinvention process, which the first one is disruption, the second one is take ownership, the third one is simplify. Those areas, those 3 words are actually to stabilize the environment and kind of prepare the environment for the next step. When you really think about step 4, connect, step 4, connect is the first proactive, positive step towards moving something forward. Before, we've disrupted it to create some space. We've taken ownership so that something positive is going to happen. We've simplified it so we know exactly what we're dealing with. But with Connect, now we're starting to put the combinations together that is the setup for the 5th step, which is movement forward. So this Connect thing, it can only be as good as a individual or an association's ability to network new and different thoughts together and weave a whole nother set of circumstances.
It really is the most exciting part for me because it's when you start feeling the rubber meeting the road. You've put all of this behind the scenes work and done all of this background, processes and checking and reviewing the history of your association or your experiences, and then all of a sudden now you're really starting to feel it come alive.
See, and I think that's partly where some individuals and organizations get tired of doing the first 3 steps of disrupting and owning and simplifying because it doesn't have that forward kind of feel to it. But when you get to the connect stage, when it's time to start connecting, doing different things, I think, Misty, for a lot of people, they really start to embrace the concept of reinvention. Because now instead of stabilizing and instead of organizing and simplifying, now we actually get to do something. We actually start to create some deliverables. We actually get to create some opportunities where we can develop metrics, that we can start measuring our progress and really starting to have a new, more robust environment for us to enjoy. And I think all of us enjoy that more robust opportunity that exists once we go through the reinvention process.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you tease me all the time about being the impatient girl, and I own the title very well.
Well, if you have to claim it, you better take it.
But at the same time, so the impatient girl in me really loves that connect part. But I would be remiss in pointing out that the connection doesn't happen unless you've put the work in those first 3 steps.
I think you're right, Misty. I think we have to realize that the setup to getting to connection is extremely important. And while it may be a little bit dull and not as fun a work to do, it is the setup to getting to the place where we can start to create some sort of meaningful, connectable opportunity, which then allows us to go to step 5, which is the movement phase. So, Misty, any final thoughts on Connect before we finish this phase?
Just that, what I find in the Connect phase is that you do a lot more disruption, ownership, and simplification just within the Connect phase, and that's always fun. So don't be afraid if you're putting out the Connect vibe and you think you're in there, that those other 2 or 3 phases aren't going to creep back up.
Thank you for being a part of this, Misty. Remember, if you're ready for a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it Pure Reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at PureReinvention.com.